The Pelicans finally gave an update on Zion Williamson, and it didn't say much of anything. But I'm going to tell you, it actually did. Let's break down what's going on with Zion and look at how the Pelicans have handled his injury. It's a Friday episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with y'all on this Friday, final show of the week. We'll have some bonus shows as the Pelicans get closer to the play-in tournament. The final show of this week, final home game of the week for the Pelicans, or of the season for the Pelicans in the Smoothie King Center. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be in there. If you see me in there, please say hi. It's the last time we might all be getting to hang out together, though they are guaranteed one more home game, actually. So today, we're going to talk about the Zion Williamson injury update that actually says more than you think. And let's break down how the Pelicans have handled this, because I do think there are some misconceptions out there. And simply put, everybody is overthinking this. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday for y'all, breaking down everything you want to know about this Pelicans team, injury updates, the play on the court, and soon, hopefully, the postseason. We're completely free. No one else comes to you like this. No hot takes, anything like that. Just Pelicans talk that you want to hear. If you want to support the channel, subscribe wherever you get your podcast, comment down below on YouTube. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. Oh boy. This took me a while to figure out kind of how to structure this show, and I have the first two segments kind of mapped out, and I think the second segment's going to go long, so I think it's going to be blurring into the third segment of today's show. So while I normally have everything kind of planned out really in detail, this one's going to be a little bit more off the cuff, and as things kind of come to me a little bit in the moment. But there's a couple things I want to get to. First and foremost, and I truly mean this because you're going to think I don't, given some of the things I'm going to say later, I get it. I get how you're feeling right now. I get your frustration. Your frustration, I want you to know, is understandable. It's to be expected, I think, with the latest update on Zion Williamson. What is going on? What is happening here? Why is this taking so long? Why did the injury update not come 2 days ago? All of those things. I'm going to answer a lot of those questions, I promise you, in today's show. So if you're frustrated, please try and stick to the end. Here's the injury update from the Pelicans. Came at 5:31. New Orleans Pelicans Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations David Griffin announced the following update on forward Zion Williamson. After further evaluation, it has been determined that Zion Williamson will continue his rehabilitation and conditioning regimen. We will continue to monitor his progression, and updates will be provided as warranted. End quote. So this is different than the past updates that we've gotten. This is one that kind of feels more open-ended. It's not, we'll talk to you guys in 2 weeks, which is what they have said previously. So is this good or bad? Does this statement say something or not? I'm going to tell you, it actually says a lot. Everyone who's saying this is vague and all that, it's not. Here's what it means. And this is why so many people are overthinking this. This statement, I promise you, is straightforward. What that statement says is he's not ready to play yet. Zion Williamson is not ready to play basketball yet. It does not say, and this is really important, this whole show is going to go long. It does not say Zion Williamson had a setback and is out for the season. It does not say we need to shut him back down and he shouldn't continue to do what he's doing. They would have said that if there was that kind of setback. They would have set that expectation clear. This goes to what I'd said in yesterday's show. I don't expect to see Zion Williamson during the regular season, but I expect he could potentially play in the postseason. Simple as that. That's what this says. He's not there yet. Someone tweeted at me the other day about Jose being like, when is he going to play? And I said, my answer to it was, when he's healthy. It's a joke, but not a joke. This is kind of similar to that. If Zion could play, and the team would clear him. There's a difference here. That I think he could play. but the team isn't clearing him. I promise you, he thinks he's ready to go. He thinks he's ready to go. But the team doesn't. And that's a discussion for another day, right? That's going to probably be a week of shows on Locked On in the offseason, but we don't have time for that today, about how they've handled the injury. Should they let him play or should they not? Simply put, according to the Pelicans, Zion Williamson isn't ready to play right now. And they said they would give an update basically this week, so they did. It's not the update y'all wanted. I get it. It's not the update I wanted either. And it sucks that he's not playing, but he's not out for the season. He didn't have a setback. So I do think when you look at this, it's actually a good update. Don't overthink this. They're not hiding anything here with this. And we'll get into how they've handled this and the transparency on that stuff in the next segment or two. But when I look at this statement, he's just not ready to go yet, according to the team. That's it. Simple as that. They have locked up a play-in tournament spot. He thinks he can play. He thinks he could play. The team doesn't, and that's who's in charge of that. That's all this says. That's all this says. Don't read into it, and I'll talk on the timeline of things, of this, the timeline of the statements being released. Why on a Thursday instead of a Tuesday or a Wednesday? Ain't nothing crazy going on here, y'all. He hasn't had a setback. He's just not ready yet. The deeper stuff with that is a discussion for another time. But he's just not ready yet. It's really as simple as that. There's nothing more or less to this statement right here. Zion is still doing his conditioning in the ramp-up process. That's actually good. That's actually a good thing. No setback is a good thing. So, okay, this segment didn't go nearly as long as I thought. Has the team handled this well? Have they handled kind of the regular updates well? And why was this on a Thursday instead of a Tuesday, a Wednesday? I have answers for all of that. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Before we do that, though, today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by the all-new, all-electric Nissan Ariya. Nissan's most electric player of the week goes to none other than Herb Jones, putting up maybe like a lifetime high in points scored in that overtime win over the Memphis Grizzlies. This is a guy who needed to step up when everything else was being shut down on the court, and he did it. You know, you look at this guy, and there are times when he was electric, driving to the basket, making those layups, that little Euro step that he does. There's elegance in the three-point shot and the form, looking really clean and solid. That's exactly like the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, which packs pin-to-your-seat power and premium intelligence all in one EV. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday for y'all, breaking down everything you want to know about this team. And instead of talking about the postseason, we are talking about the Zion Williamson injury update. What I just said right there, keep that in mind during this segment, please. So, of course, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We're here completely free Monday through Friday. No one else comes to you like this. I'm not driving the fan base up into a frenzy saying like, oh my God, what's going on here or anything like that. I'm explaining what's going on because that's what you want to know. We're the only show that does things like that. Subscribe, comment down below on YouTube. So let's continue talking about the update from Zion on Zion Williamson from the team. As I said, I think this is really straightforward. He's just not ready to play basketball just yet. I think he's recovering well, and I think it's more his conditioning isn't there. He hasn't gone through practices with the team, and they want that. And those are some of the steps they probably require for him to be cleared. Simple as that. We don't need to overthink this. You still can. I won't stop you. But hopefully I'm getting through to some of y'all that he's just not ready yet. You know, Jose Alvarado is out of his walking boot. Does that mean he's ready to play? No. It's a process, unfortunately. And this one has gone on long. And I get your frustration. It seems shades of last year, too, where Griff said he'll be ready for the regular season. I didn't say, the start of the regular season, and then he didn't play at all. I don't really think it's anywhere close to that. I think this one simply is he's just not ready yet. And he'll get there, hopefully, if there's still time and the Pelicans are still playing, and it comes down to that. So have they handled this well? That, I think, is is an interesting discussion because I do think the answer is actually yes and no. So I'm going to tell you a cold, hard truth right now, and this is going to bother a lot of y'all. This Pelicans team doesn't owe you anything when it comes to injuries. No NBA team owes their fans true transparency when it comes to injuries and things like that. It sucks to hear that. I don't like it. You don't have to like that either, by the way, but it's the truth. There's nothing that says you're entitled to that. Their job is to run that team, to build a team, and to win basketball games. And unfortunately, that does mean keeping secrets. It gives you a competitive advantage. You even saw it with like the Drew Holiday trade from the Philadelphia 76ers to the Pelicans, where they didn't disclose that he had a stress reaction, something in his leg. They fined the 76ers $3 million, but it's what you do, right? When it comes to injuries, nothing's really ever going to be transparent here or on other teams. This is pretty much the exact same for other teams. You don't know really what's going on. They might try and give time frames, but those get missed, not maybe as regularly as it feels like in New Orleans, but they're missed. This is kind of how it goes around the league. You're only really paying that much attention to the Pelicans, so you don't see it elsewhere. So it's not, I promise you, it's not just this fan base. But you're not owed the transparency that you're hoping for. You may want that. That is a completely different thing, and I do believe that is valid for you to want. But you're not going to get it. And if that means that you're not going to renew your season tickets, you're not going to pay attention to the team, all of that, the cold hard truth of this is the Pelicans are probably like, okay, whatever, we can lose that one person because it might hurt us more in terms of winning games or building the franchise, whatever, if we put a lot of this stuff out there. It's, at times, a cold-hearted business. All teams are like this. This does not mean, as many of y'all wanted to say to me today, that the team is trolling you, as others were saying. The team's not trolling you. The team is not deliberately trying to mess with you for their own personal enjoyment, laughing in a back room somewhere. It's just this is a secretive business when it comes to these things. It does cause damage to the fan base. I will be the first to say that. It does. It turns people off. That hurts the fan base, hurts the team, and stops things from growing. And you feel like you can't trust them. And when it comes to your money, you want to invest your money, and you're investing your money, your time, your mental bandwidth into this team. And you don't want to do that to someone that you don't trust. You wouldn't date someone that you didn't trust, right? Same goes here. I think they're cool losing you. It sucks. It sucks to hear that, but I think that's just kind of how it goes in sports. So let's get into some of the timeline stuff and why this update came like a little bit later, because I think people are like, oh my God, they're trolling us. No, look, what are we talking? This goes back to what I said at the beginning of the segment. Remember what it was? We're talking about the Zion Williamson injury thing here today. We should be talking about their final home game against the Knicks, the upcoming game on Sunday, the finale against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I wanted to do the show on who do you want them to play in the first round? Is it the Nuggets? Is it the Grizzlies? Is it the Kings, right? That's a much more interesting, maybe not more interesting, but that's a more relevant, in a sense, discussion to the stuff that's going out there on the court. And we're not doing that today. So when they go, hey, we'll give an update in 2 weeks, I don't actually think they mean 2 weeks to the day, to the minute, to the second, like some of y'all want. I think it's, in general, we'll give you, anywhere from 12 days to 18 days, 16 days. This update came 16 days after the last update. Y'all, that's within that 2 week time frame to me. I don't think they mean exactly 2 weeks, 14 days from right now. And if they had given this update on Tuesday, day of the game, what do you think the focus would have been on for the players, the coaches, and it would have maybe taken their focus off trying to beat the Sacramento Kings? Same thing if they do the update the next day. They played a back-to-back. They played yesterday when I'm recording this. If they gave the update on Wednesday, it would have taken the focus off of that matchup with the Kings, or with the Grizzlies. Does that cause a distraction? Does that mean maybe the Pelicans lose? So they put it on the first day that's off, on a day where there's no practice and the players don't have to answer questions about this because they would be asked. It just eliminates the distraction. I think that's why this came a couple days later than what y'all wanted. Zion wasn't there on Tuesday against the Sacramento Kings for whatever reason. we can assume and guess it's probably that he's upset they're not letting him play, and maybe he stormed off or something like that. Or maybe it was just getting more imaging done. Who knows, right? Maybe he had a tough practice, was a little sore, so he just didn't need to like leave the house, go back and rest, right? So it just creates a bigger distraction. So no, they're not going to update that on a game day like that if they don't need to at a crucial time. It's one thing to do it in the middle of the regular season, but when the games really matter, when the stakes are high and you need the focus to be precision sharp, and it certainly wasn't against the Memphis Grizzlies, you're not going to give that update because there really just isn't much of one. He's simply not ready to play basketball just yet, but he might, and he might be soon, not soon. We don't know yet, because we don't know how many practices they're going to have. You know, it's one thing to play 5-on-5 with coaches. It's another thing to do that against actual NBA players. Love Corey Brewer, but he's not the same as playing 5-on-5 with or against a guy like Brandon Ingram or Jonas Valanciunas or even Billy Hernangomez. So the 2-week thing, again, don't overthink it. It's in the ballpark. We're in the same realm of everything here. So that's why it wasn't done any of those other days. It's not to mess with you. It's not to hide anything. Man, it's just a busy time of year. Maybe they're just dealing with trying to figure out and book their travel and have a million other things going on right now rather than focusing on this when there just isn't much of one. But they did promise an update, so they gave an update. You can't really be that upset about it because you're not going to get that transparency, as I said, which sucks. And if that pisses you off and you have every right to be upset by that, don't go to the games. Don't watch. Don't listen to Locked On Pelicans. I hope you do. I don't treat you like that. But I get it. It's just the business side of this stuff. This is the side that's numbers, dollars, cents, secrets, all of that. And we don't like to think of sports in that vein, in that world, but it very much exists in all of that. And that's why when you look at all of this, it sucks. It's not fun. And there's so much PTSD from last year, but I do think these are very different things. So, it's been a day, y'all, from all of this. This one was not the most fun to record. I'm actually on better on time than I thought I was going to be. So I can pivot to the third segment that I kind of had generally planned out. When will we see Zion Williamson next? Let's talk about that coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Before we do that, though, today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you, there it goes, by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here. Now is the perfect time to download the FanDuel app, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. And then you can bet on everything from the money line to points scored, threes, drain. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. You want to take Trey Murphy, 3 or more made threes, Herb Jones to score 12 or more points, and Brandon Ingram to have 8 or more assists. You can combine all of those into a bigger payout. Those would all hit the other night. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, and the official sports betting partner of Locked On. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. I love being here with y'all, even on days like this. Try and calm you all down, make a little bit more sense of everything that's going on around the team. We don't need hysterics. We don't need to yell and say all of these things. Just shooting you straight on what's going on. I'm not trying to rile you up. I'm not trying to bring you all down. We just talk about the team. We do it Monday through Friday, completely free. No one else comes to you like this. Do me a favor, subscribe. This team has a chance to get back into the postseason despite everything this year. It's been a fun ride at times. And we're going to keep going. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Tell a friend about the show, too. If they're freaking out about Zion, point them to this episode here. And, of course, if you want to support the channel, best thing you can do, comment down below on YouTube. So we've kind of broken it down with the Zion Williamson injury. I'm trying to think in real time as I'm recording because I don't like to edit the show, and I want to just do everything in one take. A little behind the scenes, like how the sausage is made kind of thing here. Have I missed anything? I should have done the show live to answer your questions now that my internet's working again. Have we missed anything? The time frame, they don't owe you this stuff, even though they probably still should be good and kind of be a little bit more transparent. When it comes to transparency, you're also not going to get kind of like the steps, right? You're not going to get what are the benchmarks he's got to clear or anything like that. You're never going to get that. I don't know if it's like proprietary information in so much as like you just don't really share a lot of those kind of things because, well, like y'all don't need to know that, even if you think you do. If you want to know all this and feel owed all of this, you got to work for the team, basically, is what it comes down to. We don't even get a lot of this, and no one around the team was really talking the past 2 days. So I'm trying to think of if there's anything else. No, I don't think so. At least not I can think of right now. I really don't think we need to overthink this. He's just not ready yet. I think they were hoping that he would be. Maybe the conditioning just isn't there. We know that's been a thing. We've seen guys, particularly Brandon Ingram, kind of struggle coming back from injury and at times almost hurt the team being out there on the court. So you don't want to do that with this play-in tournament coming up. If he goes out there and gives you bad minutes because he's out of shape for the moment because he hasn't played much and you lose, that's not going to do you any good. I think that's kind of just what we're looking at here. This team is winning. They're 8-2 in their last 10. I did a show on, when Zion comes back, should he start or come off the bench? And I said, right now, should come off the bench. Don't mess with what's working for you. Doesn't always have to be pretty, but 8-2 is a pretty good record in the past 10. Being probably no worse than the 8th seed is a good thing for the Pelicans, I think. So don't mess with that. Don't kind of throw him in if he hasn't practiced and mess up some of that chemistry. I do think that if he can go through a practice or two, that you'll see him in the first round. I think that. I actually think that. I think if they make it that far, I'd put it as like 75% chance he would play in the first round of the playoffs for the Pelicans if they get there. I don't think he's that far off. That's why this wasn't like, hey, in 2 more weeks we'll update you. They might not be playing in 2 more weeks, right? But it could be, hey, as warranted, in 3 days, 4 days, you know what? Dude's good to go. Went through 2 practices. We feel good about him. We're going to play him. Start him or off the bench. That's why this is more open-ended. That as warranted is much better, I think, than we'll give you an update in 2 weeks when it comes to this sort of thing. Please, please, please don't overthink the statement that the Pelicans put in. Don't overthink the timing or anything like that. There is nothing. Look, they're not being transparent. They're keeping some things. But I don't think in this scenario, there's anything nefarious going on. They're not trolling you, anything like that. I do think you could really see Zion Williamson playing very, very soon for the Pelicans if they make it that far. They might not. And look, this leads to other questions, and we're going to look at those in the offseason. We don't need to do that today. I'm also running out of time. Is something going on with the medical staff, the training staff? Is someone soft? Should they just stop being overprotective with him? Stop treating him with kids' gloves? Do they need to trust him and knowing his body? Do they need to roll the dice a little bit? All of those are valid questions, and I know you have those right now. We don't have answers to a lot of that just yet. We'll probably never get answers to some of those questions. We'll look at them. We'll discuss them. I'll give you my opinion and my take on them. But I got 24 minutes here or so. And that's something we can do in the offseason because it doesn't impact things now. And we've got other things we need to talk about. And we got a big game tonight. I'll be in the Smoothie King Center. I hope you're going to be there. Free t-shirts should be a lot of fun. I'll be walking around, hanging out with some people. So I'm really looking forward to this one. And I'm looking forward to Sunday. And I'm looking forward to the play-in tournament. And I hope you are as well. So that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Be nice. Be nice. And as always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. And I'll be back with y'all on Monday.